Nhưng mà thật sự Welcome to the Policy Committee of Wallingford-Swarthmore School District. We're starting this evening, October 9th at 6 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Ms. Williams? Here. Ms. Whitsett? Here. Ms. DeLay? Here. Ms. Walkman is absent. Very much. And we'll start with that, and we're looking for approval of the minutes from the September 11th meeting. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. What's that? Aye. Okay, just making sure. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move this evening to first look at our second readings. So the policies that we looked at last month as first readings. We're going to review those and just see if anyone has any questions or concerns about those, or anything that's come up since our conversation in last month's meeting. So school calendar, opening exercises, discrimination and harassment affecting students, and discrimination and harassment affecting staff. Ms. Whitcutt, do you have any questions for the second reading? On which one? The calendar, the opening exercises, and wide displays, discrimination.
The discrimination and harassment affecting students. There's under the definitions, it says it says gender. It doesn't include race.
Discrimination in policy. Or it's a race color, I'm sure we're just really
No, down farther.
Yeah, if you look under purpose for this is policy 103. And under the purpose, the board declares the policy this should provide equal opportunity for all students to achieve their maximum potential through programs offered in the school, regardless of race, color, age, religious creed, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, ancestry, national origin, marital status, pregnancy, childbirth, pregnancy-related medical conditions, or handicap disabilities, including disabilities. But it does say that all discrimination, harassment, for any of those reasons would fall under this policy.
I had it in my notes, and I don't have my notes with me. So maybe it wasn't on this one. Maybe it's on.
It is covered there in the intended there for any of those reasons. The race is included.
It's under the unlawful harassments.
Well, that's a repeat. Those are
No, then it's under hazing and bullying.
So we haven't gotten there.
Yes.
Okay. So no questions on those first few?
No.
Okay. Ms. Dolan? No, I don't. Okay, nor do I. Okay, great. Then with agreement from the committee, we'll move those 4 policies in regards to the board meeting on the 21st. Very good, thank you. This is where we would take public comment on any of our second reading items. There's no one with us this month, so we can move to the 2 policies that we are requesting to repeal: unlawful harassment 248, which is regarding students, and unlawful harassment 348, which is regarding. Do you have any questions, Mr. Pett?
No.
So, just to clarify, this was again because they were redundant, right? Because of what we just. Okay. Yeah, with the 103 and 104, 248.
I usually go.
Yeah. No question.
Yep.
Very good. Commissioner will move those forward. Yeah, great. That moves us to policies for first reading. So we'll start with 247 hazing. And we'll Scavenger will walk us through that and changes.
So this also came under review, but there's some 9 changes to ensure that there are the 9 changes here. And there were no substantive changes here. They were just merely enhancements to the policy itself.
What's that? Do you have questions on the hazing policy? I think it's under the AR. Question, we'll let me start right after this and come back later. Looking at the AR. Okay, all right, it's still red. I just wanted to clarify, so it looks like consuming an alcoholic liquid or drug, it falls under the first category of hazing, but then also under the more serious category of aggravated. Is that right? Because it shows up there twice under both categories.
Yes.
Correctly, okay, so it's both.
Yes.
Right, okay. And then just I was wondering, when you read under aggravated hazing, it seems like, isn't number 2 also number 1? It's listed as 4. This is just splitting hairs, I guess. I'm just trying to understand more than anything.
For the definition 1 under aggravated hazing.
Yeah, so the person acts with reckless indifference to the health and safety of the student, or the person causes, coerces, or forces the consumption of an alcoholic liquid or drug. I was just curious to know why that's listed as a word. I mean, is that not, or is that just providing an example, or?
So some of these are legal definitions, but
Okay.
in order to meet the definition, you could set number 1 could happen or number 2 could happen.
Get rid of.
So typically these are read or and, meaning, so if it's or, it's one or the other. If it's and, you would have to meet both of them. You can meet.
I guess what I'm getting at is 2 seems like it is, you know what I mean? I don't understand why it's, I just don't understand why it's written. It's just, they seem like 2 separate things. I guess they are meant to be 2 separate things, but in reality, they're similar things, right?
Yes, I think you're right. I think 2 could fall under 1,
Mhm.
the consumption of alcoholic drug. But I believe this is a legal some of this is defined within the law, but you're right. That could happen, but you could meet 1, but I think there's a requirement to spell out that specifically.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That's a
Yeah,
good question.
it does. Yeah, it does. Do you have another? No. All right, understood that.
On the AR, there's a couple of things under policy notification. It says, and on an as-needed basis during the activity or season. Is that something you're adding in or taking away?
We're adding that in.
Okay, so who determines as needed? Who determines as needed?
The coach or the activity sponsor, perhaps the athletic director, principal, sort of depending on if they're seeing anything that is starting to lean into that hazing category or getting close to the line. I wonder if that would be into everybody.
So you would give a reminder out as opposed to a discipline? So then that's discretion.
No, it wouldn't be, if it's hazing, it's hazing. If it's something that the adult supervising is looking at it and saying, like, you guys are getting really close to the line. You're not here yet, but the things you're doing or that you're saying are not okay. And we're gonna handle that. But by the way, let me remind you, you are very close to being in violation of policy. Let me remind you.
So is there documentation when that happened? Is it reported to somebody that,
I would say that the coaches would have had a conversation with the athletic or the principal. To say, these are the concerns I'm having, I'm gonna talk to them about it, I wanna make you aware of it. Maybe the athletic director joins them for that meeting to say, here's a reminder of what should not be happening. And here's what you need to do. Students need reminders all the time about lots of things.
yeah, but I just don't know if it needs to be written into a policy. The way you're explaining it is something that is explained to them when you first read them the policy. So why does it have to be written in the policy and be so vague about it?
The thing that isn't vague is that in the beginning of the season, they don't have a choice. They must inform them. It's almost like giving them permission that if something comes up, they can re-inform them. And it's not about discipline, it's not about documentation. That sort of comes down later. It's really just making it a non-negotiable that they tell them about in the beginning of the season, and then kind of an option should they need it later in the season. But I think the thing that's important is the non-negotiable in the beginning. I think that's,
Yeah, that's why I'm questioning whether or not that needs to be added in. Because you've read them the policy, they've signed off as being a part of a responsible, respectable, the whole spiel that they give them to be an athlete.
Right.
So they know the do's and don'ts. So if they start messing around, it isn't a matter of it getting close, it's a matter of you're doing it. It isn't a matter, I mean, who determines what's close?
well, case in point. A team that I know of, they were gonna ask all the freshman boys to shave their heads. They didn't do it because their coach was like, no, that's hated. But like, it doesn't have to be like, you're gonna drink a fifth of liquor tonight, or, you know what I mean? Like, it can be other things.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know,
nice to be
but
able to remind them. That's all it's saying. It's not saying they have to, it's just saying if you see these teachable moments, you can remind them.
it just feels like you're letting the athletes off off. You're giving special treatment to athletes that in other instances, people aren't given a reminder.
Remember, I mean, this doesn't pertain to just athletics. This is any activity that our students are involved. It's anything.
And they're also, if there is a violation, they're legally required to report. So there's not like, they have to report. There's none of this like, oh, you get a warning and you don't.
Okay, so then it said, complaints of hazing by a student against another student shall be handled in the same manner as other student disciplinary investigations. The person accepting the complaint shall handle the report objectively, neutrally, and professionally, setting aside personal biases that might favor or disfavor the student following the complaint or those accused of a violation of these administration regulations or the accompanying board policy. Isn't that statement sort of subjective? Like you're assuming somebody can put aside their biases, which normally doesn't happen. They say that they can, but in actuality, they don't.
And this language is again, an enhancement, it's in similar, policy languages, and I think the legal recommendation to state that these investigations should be impartial and free from stereotypes, from biases, to the extent that it's practical to do so.
Yeah, I'm saying that based on the history of this school district and what has happened systemically, I don't think there's a lot of people that can put aside personal biases when it comes to handling a complaint. If it turns out that you're the investigator assigned, but the person happens to be one of your favorite students, are you gonna be able to put that aside, or are you gonna accuse yourself? I think there should be something in there written about recusing yourself from the investigation if it's too close at hand. And if you can't put these aside, then you should not take on the responsibility of investigating.
I think that's what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is actually what this sentence is intended to get at, to state that if by requiring someone to be objective, if they cannot be objective, we would have to assign another investigator under this language. So I think that this language is getting at your point.
Getting it.
Yeah.
If they can't be unbiased, they can't do it. That's what the policy says. They have to be unbiased, and if they don't agree to that, they can't do it according to this policy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the word shall is pretty strong in
Yeah.
this language. That means that they have to be unbiased. And I guess if you play it out and there was an investigation done by somebody and it turns out that they were in fact biased during the investigation, that person is now violating the policy, correct?
Exactly.
And it would be a disciplinary for us to do. I think it gives strength to the investigation.
I agree.
Because it's clearly saying you've got to be unbiased in this investigation, and it's got to be clean. And if it's not, that's a violation, right? You take it to the next step.
Yes.
That's all.
All right, anything else?
If in the course of hazing investigation, potential issues of Title V, nine, discrimination or sex-based harassment are identified. That's where I thought that race should be put in. That it should read race, discrimination, racial discrimination or sex-based harassment are identified as.
This was added because for Title IX, which includes sex-based harassment and discrimination, there is a specific legal requirement that those issues need to be addressed through the grievance process and with the coordinator. But other protected characteristics do not have that legal requirement, so we were required to put this notation for Title IX with the recent legal changes as well. This is a legal change.
Anything else? And I don't have any questions that haven't already been addressed, so thank you. All right, so that was hazing. So then we will move to the bullying. So Ms. Gallagher, I think there was an overview on that.
And this was similar while we were looking at hazing. We could also wanted to look at bullying, so very similar policies. Again, just enhancements were made here, no substantive changes. And there was one legal requirement, requiring a report to the threat assessment team. That's required by law.
Mr. Peck, any questions? No. Ms. Stoller? One thing I just wanted to point out, under school setting, I think there might be a typo, the first line reads, in school, on school grounds, in school vehicles. I'm assuming it meant to read at designated bus stops. Right, where are you on the AR? I'm sorry, no, in the policy itself.
Yes, paragraph that says school setting.
School setting means in school, on school grounds, in school vehicles.
At the,
Yeah.
Yep.
At the designated bus stops, isn't there a legal distance from where the incident occurs and where the actual bus stop is? I know that a couple of years back, maybe two, there was some racial tension going on between same race people, and they were getting off at the same bus stop. And in the middle of the block is where the fights were occurred. And the district said that they were not responsible because it wasn't at the bus stop. So what are you determining as the bus stop here?
I think it would be the location where the students are, the designated location where the students are dropped off and picked up off of the bus.
Yeah, but that area around there is like within walking distance of going behind the bus to get to the bus or walking behind it to get off. And the district said that it wasn't at a bus stop. When,
Correct me if I'm wrong, we, like, as a school, like, this is kind of spelled out, what is our responsibility and what's legal responsibility, so like, if a fight occurred like that, I would think that the police would have been called rather than the school district, right? It wasn't at the bus stop. If they purposely were like in the middle of the street somewhere fighting, that should have been the police.
the police were called, but parents called the school to notify the school and to get counseling and to diffuse this bullying that was going on. It was a girl being bullied who was being jumped, getting off the bus. And the district said that they didn't have anything to do with it. So I'm just trying to figure out, what is the distance of a bus stop? Is it right at the door when they're getting on the bus? Is that considered the bus stop? Is it 5 feet from the door? Is it 10 feet from the door? Because that was the incident. The girl was being bullied. And the other girls were getting on her bus, which should have been stopped at the school because it wasn't their bus to get on. And they were getting on her bus.
Where's our jurisdiction? Again, I would say that these are gray areas that are really difficult for administrators. Our jurisdiction, if a kid's on a school bus, obviously that's our jurisdiction. It's just like if a parent is driving their kid to school, they get into an accident on the way to school, that is not our jurisdiction, obviously, getting to the spot. Once they're at the bus stop, waiting for the bus, that's where our jurisdiction begins. Our administrators, when they hear about bullying or harassment or things that take place as kids are walking to and from, is not really our jurisdiction. This is, if you play it out legally, if we say we're going to suspend or expel a kid because of something that happened in the neighborhood, and this is technically now the neighborhood, we don't have as much leverage as we do on the bus, in the school, on a playground, or a sponsored trip. So we could do an investigation. We could then turn that over to the police, and we would work with the police on the investigation in that community. These are really difficult areas, but this is that gray area where does our jurisdiction begin then, in terms of where we can control this.
And to answer your question, it doesn't sound like there's a definitive 3 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet. It sounds like this is.
Who has the better attorney?
Yeah, it's like, and I do think it is something that we would work collaboratively with community police to figure out. Realistically, would we consider this the designated bus stop, if they were 2 steps away? But I don't think there's a definitive answer. How many feet?
So,
Yes, Michelle.
oh, all right. Oh, no,
Cause you keep like saying, is that all? Is that all? Is that all?
I was trying to be simple and see if you had anything else. It's like this, but I'm sorry, I did not know to do this. I don't have any.
Next policy is 234, pregnant students. It's the new policy for us. Yeah. Handled in terms of what we're required by law to provide to students who are accepting, in regard to space and building, education, which is part of the federal law as well. And it's simply new policy, and it covers students who are expecting.
Miss, what's that? Yeah. Miss Bowman? Can I ask a question about the AR? That, are we doing the policy or? Okay, okay. So, for the AR under absences. So. Absences may temporarily be excused for a period not to exceed 3 months. I'm just curious, what does that look like? And are we providing education during that time? Like how? Just curious to know.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the homebound manual on the student services website would spell out sort of the timeline, the number of hours of homebound instruction you would be eligible for, when the timeline starts, and then it's that 3-month period. And then sometimes after the 3-month period, there may be complications, and it would just be another doctor's note. It's spelled out pretty clearly in the homebound.
So it's not that they're excused from education or being educated.
Right, they would then fall into homebound instruction, which is a different attendance code. Yeah. Thanks. But it is spelled out very clearly in the homebound manual if you ever take a look.
And I think it's great that it allows for a lactation space too. It reminded me of our conversation about prayer space. And I kind of wondered, just to the back of my mind, if it's some space and I'm in the AR or policy. For that. That's for another conversation. But otherwise, that's it. Thank you. I don't have any questions. I don't think.
And then policy 259, gender expansive and transgender students, ensuring equity and discrimination. This policy we already have, it's existing, we've updated. Turn it to walk us through some of those changes.
Or again, on our Title IX theme, we took a look at the, at this policy. The policy itself actually didn't change too much. Typically, we changed some of the language for enhancement, but it's generally the same as the old policy, even though it is redlined. And then we did create a new AR. The old AR was in a PDF previously, so we, instead of editing that, we took portions of it and created an AR. Biggest changes with the AR, some of the definitions are have been removed. The last time it was updated was in 2018, so updated language, which we didn't feel that needed to be included. There's been some changes in the law too regarding record, so that's been updated in the AR.
This was not. No. What's going? Yeah, just a few things. Under delegation of responsibility, so that first sentence in an effort, this is in the policy.
Mhm.
in an effort to ensure that transgender and gender expansive students are provided. I'm not sure what's meant by that. And gender, is that redundant?
That's a typo and
Okay.
it has since been corrected.
Thank you.
So it should just read, it's on the screen too, in effort to ensure that transgender and gender expansive students are provided.
And then, under, let's see, for the AR. I do have other things other than typos, I promise, but under the definitions, gender expression means the way a person expresses gender in ways such as dress, grooming. I'm assuming that's meant to read ways, in ways such as dress, grooming, hairstyle, behavior.
Yes.
And then, under privacy, in reading this, it just struck me that it doesn't seem to allow for a scenario where a student explicitly discloses in the school setting, but doesn't want home to know. For some reason, the way that reads kind of doesn't allow for that scenario, the way I'm reading it. And it almost seems to negate the paragraph that follows it, saying that gender expansive and transgender students have the right to discuss and express their gender identity and expression openly, and to decide when, with whom, and how much to share. So when I read the paragraph above that, it's saying school personnel should not disclose this information to others, including the student's parents, guardians, and/or other school personnel, unless legally required to do so, or the information is necessary in order to accommodate the student or ensure the student's safety, or unless the student has authorized such disclosure or explicitly disclose their gender in the school setting. So what about the scenario where the student wants to explicitly express in the school setting, but doesn't want home to know? Is that not allowable under this, the way it's written? Am I making sense? Does that make sense? Okay. It just seems to me like it negates the statement that follows. Like I'm thinking of a scenario where a student has decided, hey, I'm comfortable in school, to be who I believe I am, but I'm still not comfortable with home knowing. I just want to understand what this is saying and what it's not.
And that's what that is saying. There would not be based on this sentence. Therefore, school personnel should not disclose this information to others, including students, parents, guardians, unless legally required to do so.
Or unless the student is. So if the student explicitly disclosed in the school setting, what if they only chose to disclose in the school setting? What if they don't want to disclose? Then what happens?
That's where that line comes in, that therefore school personnel should not disclose information to others, including the student, parents, guardians, or even other school personnel. Sort of the first sentence in that paragraph.
Right, or unless the student explicitly disclosed their gender in the school setting. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually thought that was the typo, and I thought it meant explicitly disclose their gender in the home setting, like if the student.
Oh, right, that would make.
I thought that was the typo.
That would make more sense.
I'll leave that. Yeah, maybe I'm interpreting it.
I think that can be
So they shouldn't disclose.
Right.
Unless the student explicitly discloses, but again, the thing is.
And
That almost paves the way for, hey, the student is okay with it, so, okay, but they may be in school about it.
I can maybe tweak the sentences, maybe make two instead of having one, and then we can circulate that for the next meeting, getting this sentiment across.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the spirit of it. Is that the spirit of it?
Yes, what you described
The student
is.
decides when and when.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know, does someone else want to jump in? I don't want to be back.
I want to ask about the disclosure as a minor child who has spoken to a counselor. Is the counselor designated, obligated to notify the parents of what's going on? Because the child might just be mirroring what a classmate is doing and running into some mental health issues that could be something that the parent needs to know. That their third grader is thinking of transitioning because a classmate is. I'm just wondering, like, what's the legality of the school as far as a minor child? Which I guess they're all minors up until 16, but even then, they're not. Would you say they're mature enough to make this decision on their own without their parents?
That's two different questions. One is the legal question that I would ask Ms. Gallagher to respond to, and then if I could follow up maybe with more of our practices.
The legal requirement would be, if there was a student safety issue regarding this, then it would be required, then the school would have duty to notify the parents. For safety.
So if the counselor saw that there was a change in the child's affect and their willingness to participate in school and they're going from B's to D's and so there's something clearly going on with the child.
The counselor would then disclose exactly what you said, Ms. Fitz. They would disclose the change in affect, the change in grades, et cetera, et cetera. They would not necessarily disclose any information about gender fluidity, gender expression, or transfer. It would not, it would really be, they'd be talking about exactly the things you mentioned, the changes, but they would not disclose the gender expansive presentation.
Yeah, and then under D, restrooms. So I know, and I know that
Came up in a board meeting.
right, and I know that you're going to be following up with the GSA at the high school to kind of get their feedback on the middle school as well, which is great. Because I know that it was brought up and, an issue with restrooms in particular.
Well, they were promised that it would be looked into and that it would be taken care of.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes,
we can go back and look at
We have
board
gender-
meetings.
we have gender neutral.
We do. Okay, that was going to be my question.
But aren't they where they're located is where the students were saying that they're far off or they're in a janitor's closet. They're not
They are not as,
equity
they are
based.
not as convenient as we would like them to be, and that is simply a facilities issue. And if we move to renovation, something.
That's where you address that.
Yeah.
With renovation.
We have them and we have them in the ebb and flow, but it's not necessarily, they could be, just depending where you are in the building, it continues to be an inconvenience. It's also difficult for staff. We've made some staff bathrooms, gender neutral bathrooms for students, and then staff really have to travel to use the restroom, and they only have so long for a prep period. So this is sort of our facilities, but we have met the requirement of having gender neutral bathrooms. And I'd love to get them to be more convenient for both staff and students when we renovate. But nobody's in a janitor's closet.
No.
And while the nurse's office is an option, that is not the only option. The students were very clear that is the plan.
Well, one of the students said something about it. It was in a obscure, like not typically used for a restroom, but they had slapped the general new.
I think since that time, that's been in the other way. I think we have it in a.
Two wings and. Yeah. She said,
Yes, and students have been clear, they don't necessarily want to use the nurse's office, so they do have an option.
But they can.
Yeah, they have.
Yes.
But in this facility, you know.
Essentially, Steve.
Yeah, okay. I would be invited to that. And then just one more under J, education and training. So, under the second paragraph, the student services department will be responsible for incorporating gender expansive and transgender students into the district's curriculum, training, and professional development. It just, we don't mean incorporating the students, we mean incorporating issues related to their education or, I don't know, just, do you know what I'm trying to say? It
Yes,
just seems
and I can tweak that language. Yes, the students themselves are not.
aren't gonna be incorporated into it. You know, you're not gonna have them presenting in professional development or guiding. I mean, I wanted that, that's.
I would say, I don't see why they shouldn't share their story
And
in
we have done that,
professional
yeah.
development.
I agree, we have done that at the high school, and one of our students volunteered to do that. But I would certainly want that to be on a voluntary
Yes.
basis, people who, you know, sort of want their voices to be heard. I agree with you, Elizabeth, I think it's a nice idea. And when students want to do it, we've allowed it to happen. You know, and I wonder too, is this where, I would imagine this is another policy, though, I think we have policy 109 that talks about materials, but, you know, books that reflect different identities, you know, could this speak to this as well? That and some of the materials that we ordered through Sea Petals, which I think we talked a little bit about last week during our sea. Maybe, and I don't know.
Thank you. And then the final policy for first reading is 801 public records.
I just ask, we're gonna ask for public input after each policy, or add them into the idea.
So this was due to another change in the law, which requires that a right to know request be submitted by or tied to an actual individual. There's been a trend where various political groups and other community groups are using artificial intelligence to send hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of requests without having an individual attached to it. So now an individual needs to make the exact request. And the majority of this is taken straight, it's quite lengthy. This is taken straight from the law. The Open Records Act. So, and this is also what PSBA modeled after PSBA's policy as well.
Okay. Any comments on first readings of policies that we discussed this evening?
Comments only on first reading or also for second?
Right now, first readings, and then we can move back.
And if you say your name and the street you live.
Sure.
So nothing on first reading?
I can come in. Melissa Crawford, I live in Juniata and Swarthmore. I have two high schoolers in the district, one of whom is transgender. So I just had a couple of comments on policy 59. Like to echo Ms. Jolie's comments on privacy. And I wonder if there's a way to word in there, just make it explicit that the staff should ask the student permission to disclose that any disclosure to the family is at the permission of the student. And I think you can probably just tweak the wording. I wanted to echo the restroom comment. I know you can't, I know. But I or the head of a pediatric gastroenterologist and also the parent of a transgender kid, and withholding is such a problem for these kids when they don't know where to go to the bathroom. And my student is transgender and has a bathroom, it's fine. But when I asked him where the gender neutral bathrooms were, neither one of my high schoolers could tell me. So I'm not sure how much that's percolated out, and of two. And not the best barometers, to be honest. Do with that what you want. I guess for the point about professional development, I think if you just wrote issues as opposed to students, that would cover that issue. And then I just had a question about under athletics. It says a student may seek review of their eligibility for participation in interscholastic athletics by working through the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Activities Association. What does that mean? That's not yes or no.
You want to take that, or I'm not familiar with the IAA where they landed on this issue.
Sure, the PIAA, I don't have the policy in front of me, but it essentially, puts the decision-making authority on the principal of the school to make a determination.
So then can we assume from that within this district, students are able to participate with in sports that identify with, or that align with their gender identity without any questions asked? That's what we do.
That isn't exactly spelled out in this policy.
That's why I'm asking. I mean, that's what's done, so I assume that's what's allowed, but I don't, if this is a policy for my students. I don't know and I don't know what legally you can state.
I think you have to read, the references PIAA.
Right.
PIAA makes a change in their laws and their regulations.
Then you're stuck.
But right now, they're leaving it up to each school district. I don't know if we do or not in terms of.
We have that, but I know we are reliant on, and it seems to be evolving, PI, I think that's why they reference it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that could change. I think they're going through their own
Yes,
process.
that's why I said, I'm not sure where they landed legally.
Yeah, and I recognize the complexity of that.
Yeah.
Are you, Ms. Gallagher, making the change that was recommended by Ms. Crawford regarding changing the language from students to issues under the professional development aspects? Or you're just gonna review it and see what just make sure that flows properly, so that it doesn't seem like we're integrating students, we're integrating the topic.
Yeah,
right?
that's what our committee would like,
Right, yeah,
like me to do, to make sure it's the
right.
the issue.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on second grades? Okay, so if the committee is comfortable, then we will move all of these policies to a first reading. With the board eventually.
Can I just clarify though, you are going to, sort of try to work on the wording of that paragraph to make it more clear that, and then to even take it a step further as we shared, we're asking students permission, is that what you had said, something there, yeah. Does that fit into this paragraph? I mean, is that the spirit of what this paragraph is saying? Paragraph names and sorry, under privacy. Correct. The AR under privacy.
Yeah, the language I've always heard is they are not permitted to disclose. I've never heard the term without permission, although that is the spirit.
As long as that's.
It is, but I would like to wordsmith that a little bit more. I'd like to wordsmith that a little bit more. That is the spirit, is that we do not disclose unless the student is ready to disclose.
Right. And ready to disclose at home. In other words, they may have disclosed at school, but they may not be ready to disclose.
Yes.
That was
So any disclosure is is by approval of the student. So they wanted that worded in somewhere in the paragraph, that it explicitly says that it is the student who gives the authorization to disclose.
I think it's a wordy sentence is the problem, and it's super long,
Yeah.
but I think it says that.
It
Doesn't
does,
it?
and you
Kind
can
of
words.
I think it can be better.
I think
for
we
sure.
should wordsmith
Yeah.
this and come back for second
Right.
reading and it would be bigger.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't like a huge, yeah, so then that change won't prevent it from going to the second reading, we're just gonna go ahead. This will go for first reading. I'm sorry, then put first reading, right, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
because,
see, okay.
because this, what is discussed is the spirit of this paragraph, it's just simply tweaking the language so it can continue to.
Okay.
improve.
Okay. So are
And we
we,
can circulate that language as well.
Yeah, and again, this part that I'm talking about, which Megan, you had said, you think it's meant to read unless they explicitly disclosed in the home setting. That would be more consistent with the spirit of what we're saying. Okay, and I actually thought that.
okay.
Thank you.
I guess we're good to remove these.
Yeah, I'll make those two changes in that paragraph. And then we'll wait for-
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And then was there public comment on the second reading?
I think I can offer one, it mildly pertains to.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't get
And
my
just
name,
a
my
street
apologies,
remark.
yes. My name is Sid, Mr. I live on President Avenue in Rutledge.
Thank you.
I think, it mildly pertains also to the first reading, why I wasn't quite sure, but, what I observed is a sentiment that, these policies, I think it's a lofty ideal to think of these policies as protecting the students. And broadly speaking, I'm not sure that you'll be able to accomplish that goal. I think these policies are actually designed to protect the school district, and I think that is, I don't mean that as a criticism. You can't protect that student if you can't protect my daughter from waiting on the corner of Rose Valley Road and Providence Road for a kid who's walking home. Or you can't protect that student if I abuse them because I don't like the way they present themselves at home and they decide to present themselves differently at school and they start bullying other kids or something like that. So in that sense, I do think that that policy, 248, I believe it was, is phrased correctly, which is to say, unless you're explicitly stating, how you present at school, we won't disclose. Sorry, I'm getting my wills and won'ts. But basically to say, if you're open about what gender you're presenting at school, then we feel that we can say it at home, because again, you can't protect the student from what's happening at home. If I have a certain reaction based on our home life, or if I decide to give my kid alcohol or marijuana or any of the number of things as a parent, I have that license to do so. And I don't think that your jurisdiction, as much as it's a lofty idea to protect them, and I'm only going to lightly touch on the cell phone topic that came up a few weeks ago, right? If I want to give my kid a phone, same issue, right? They can circumvent whatever policies you derive, and enact whatever they want to. I think your role here, not yours, but I think the policy role here is that the school district has an adequate response whenever any of these things emerge. And so, if that child is getting into a bullying situation at school, based on how they present their gender, or you determine that that's a relevant factor in this bullying or whatever fight situation, and you tell me at home, I think that you've created an adequate response, and that's why I think the policy is phrased the way it is. Because again, it's protecting the district, because you can only protect the students so much.
Well, aren't most of the policies, I'll say, aren't most of the policies generated to protect the district from legal repercussions and not so much based on the protection of the student?
It's to give.
Because a lot of times when issues I guess when I raise issues, it's shot down because you say I'm splitting hairs or this is how it appears that the basis of the argument is in the statement when it's clearly not written. It's not spelled out to where a student can understand and relate to the policy.
Right, it's more to give guidance and protection to the district. The guidance is for staff, and the administrative regulations are a little more specific on that guidance for our staff administrators. But the ultimate goal should be to protect those are in place to protect our students. Although I certainly understand the legalese about it's written to protect the district. There's part of that that's true, but I think of it more as guidance for administrators. But I'm speaking legalese and I'm not the attorney, so I can let the attorney speak her legalese. Well, and I just wanted to quickly say, I think I see this less as protecting the student and more as fathering them.
Mhm.
You know, I don't really feel like it's here so we can protect them. It's that particular part of it, anyway. I don't know. I understand your point, in particular to the bullying policy is that, you know, there are limitations in how much we can protect the student.
I suppose, like, I don't know if these types of issues occur in this school district, but on the bullying topic, in the school district where I grew up, kids would wait on school grounds. Right, that's how they got around the rule, because school grounds, you can get expelled, they wait off campus, right? And they knew where that kid was walking from if they had something to do. In this situation, if I was to try to apply that type of logic, okay, well, you can't say to my parents what I'm doing in school unless I've explicitly told everyone, then I can get in all kinds of mischief based on maybe gender presentation or based on cross-dressing or any of a number of other issues. And I can say, oh, it's because he took my pencils. I haven't explicitly told anybody that I'm presenting of one gender or another. And since I haven't, now you can't go back to my house and you have to tell them that it's about pencils. Now that's being rather cynical, right? But that's why I say, like, can't necessarily protect, you know, the student from what's happening at home. Do you kind of see what I'm saying? I guess what I mean to say is that student can always get around the rule, can always maintain whatever lives maintain. You can only govern what the district's response is going to be. Because that student can go down whatever road they want to go down.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else on second readings? So school calendar, opening exercise, discrimination, protecting students or staff. If not, then we can move to adjourn the meeting. An announcement that our next meeting will be Wednesday, November 13th at 6 o'clock, same place.